All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us for another great edition of the Moving Beyond the Coronavirus Economy series. And we've got to come up with a new name at this point, as we may have been hopefully moved past, at least in terms of recognizing the world we're all living in. And I'm excited to have for our guest today, John Francis, also known as Johnny Franchise, has been in and around franchising literally his whole life. He's one of the most experienced people you'll ever run into from the perspective of a franchisee, a franchisor, franchise leadership, and you name it. He's done it, been around, advised, coached, consulted. And I'm so grateful to have him on. And the big focus for today that we're hoping John will be sharing with us is this concept of a mastermind group. And for those of you that are tuning in, you're probably familiar with mastermind groups and have seen these different kinds of business learning and communities that are created. Well, John's leading one specific for franchisors. So if you're a new franchisor or a growing franchisor, this episode is for you. So with that, John, I'd love to turn things over to you for an introduction and take it away.
Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to just share a bit more about who I am and what I do and some advice, I guess, and perspective to help people in franchising. That's really where I spend most of my time is with franchise businesses and the post-COVID era. Yeah, I agree. I declared it over like some time ago. So I'm very optimistic that we'll stay in that state of mind, back to forward motion, and without that kind of obstacle. Man, what a mess that created, so many levels. So it's good to be back. I was just in New York City at the IFE conference and I missed you briefly. I saw you in the hallway, but I went to your booth and you had already taken off, which is great. I think they said you were doing some family stuff that weekend. I thought that was wonderful. I made it there and I had my youngest daughter come out with me. We had some fun too. So anyway, it's good to be back. That show kind of really, for me, this was just last weekend, really showed me that franchising is back at what I would say full volume, full throttle, where everything seemed to be back and forward and positive. And the world of franchising is just full of entrepreneurs and collaboration and enthusiasm. I mean, it's hard to be frustrated, when the whole industry is just going so fast. So it was fun to be there and see you and your team. So well done there.
Yeah.
So my name is John Francis and I live in Minneapolis, right? But my nickname is Johnny Franchise, and someone has to give you a nickname. You can't just take one. So my nickname was given to me by a friend of mine here in Minneapolis, a lawyer. His name is Brian Schnell. He's a longtime friend of mine. He's been around for a long time, like me, and in franchising as a lawyer in a variety of capacities. And he's grown up and done a great job with his career and the firms and the clients that I know he has. He's considered probably one of the top franchise lawyers in the country, if not around the world. And Brian's a buddy, again, local guy here. Minnesota's a big small town, We were at a conference here and he said, when I see you, I think Johnny Franchise. So he's like, hey, Johnny Franchise. We, a big hug and a big handshake, and everybody around us had a good laugh. It was kind of funny, ha ha. And it stuck, right? It stuck for that 3-day conference. Everybody who saw me or who was introducing me to somebody else and said, oh, this is John Francis, but I know him as Johnny Franchise. And so for a few years, that nickname was out there, and I really didn't embrace it because I kind of thought it was a little corny, a little like, really, I'm not a big sports fan, but there was a guy named Johnny Football that was pretty popular, and I guess he didn't do such a great job. So I didn't really want to be, it had this connotation, I guess. And then I was talking to a friend of mine, another friend here locally, and we were talking about it. He says, you're crazy. You should use that. It's perfect for you. He said, it's really who you are, Johnny Franchise. You're easygoing and approachable, and you just love to talk and love to share. And, you're not complicated. He said, it's you. He said, embrace it. And so I said, well, my only fear is I think it might sound kind of stupid, you know? And he said, this good friend was being honest with me. He said, it's only stupid if you're stupid. And I said, okay, well, then I guess I'll embrace it, you know. So I sort of adopted the brand a few years ago and printed new business cards and set up the website and everything. And it's been it works, you know. It is who I am, and I don't think anyone else is going to try to use it. You know, it's kind of a unique thing. But anyway, I love what I do, and I love helping people. And the whole franchise world, like you said, it's where I grew up. You know, I grew up in a franchisor of hair salons. My dad here was a barber in Minneapolis, and he franchised barber shops way back in the 1960s. Really, before there were franchises, there for salons. There were hotels and gas stations and restaurants, but there wasn't much else out in services or anything in the salons. So he franchised barbershops, and long story short, it worked. And he built a brand called the Barbers, was the parent company, the original concept, which was an upscale, full service, high-end men's barbershop. Kind of what you're seeing a resurgence here 50 years later. It's come back full cycle. In the 80s, we developed a brand called Cost Cutters, which was low price, quick service, a la carte, kind of retail salon barbershop for men and women and children. And there we did full services in terms of color and perms and haircuts and products. A lot of retail was a big part of that model. That brand exploded and went really well. We rolled it back to our existing owners, and some of them embraced it, and that was built as a multi-unit model. It was engineered that way, which was again innovative. Then in the later 80s, we developed a brand called City Looks, which was a high-end salon spa, kind of full service, skin, hair, nails, you know, all of that, massage. Some of these salons and spas were just fantastic. Some great business in that real high end. So in the 90s, we did acquisitions. We rolled in a few other brands that were regional brands. We did 4 deals and rolled in a few hundred stores. And then we also hooked up with Walmarts. We were going inside of the Walmart supercenters when that was a big deal. And then I got to do some international work. We did international franchising in Europe and a joint venture project in Russia that I could tell you stories about. And I think you can hear about that another time. But so I spent a lot of time in this company growing up in this business. It was a publicly traded franchisor. We were listed on NASDAQ, and my mom and dad were the founders. And I grew up thinking everybody owned 2 or 3 businesses and everybody worked for themselves. And I thought everything was a franchise. So of course I realized as I grew up and you know, not everything is and not everything should be franchised. But I grew up in that system as a franchisee, running salons. I never cut hair, never got that far in the business, but I know how to run salons. I know how to operate and manage that business. And then the franchising of it really was the beauty of it. We had a great culture in that company, and we had a great successful models, a variation of models, and we had different segments. So we were multi-brand, multi-unit, international, publicly traded franchisor. Fantastic experience to grow up in that environment, right? We sold that business in 1999. We traded shares basically with Regis Corporation. And back in those days, Regis was a much different organization. They were a major operator of hair salons, a consolidator in the industry. And they had just bought Supercuts a couple of years prior. And I think they realized that the franchising piece was a mystery to them. So our group became the franchise division of Regis Corporation, who had, I think, 4,000 salons at the time. We sold them another 1,000. We were just over 1,000 units. They grew it up to be, I think, close to 20,000 salons. It was just a huge organization. And then their thing changed, and it's not anything like it used to be. But I left Regis in 99, you know, 22 years ago, right? I was a relatively young man at the time, but I had a lifetime career in franchising already in our family business and all the other stuff that my father, Joe Francis, was a wild entrepreneur, and he got us into all kinds of things. And it was a lot of fun being his youngest child. You know, I developed a reputation for putting structure to the chaos. right? My nickname, one of my earlier nicknames, probably unofficial, was the cleanup kid, right? Because I would come in behind my dad and put documentation and organize files and timelines and reminders and like, oh yeah, we have to do what we promised. And anyway, it was a great experience. I grew up understanding real estate and retail and franchising and services and salons and the hair industry and the product industry and marketing, operations, finance, publicly traded boards, all kinds of stuff. I got exposed to so much. It was a great experience. So I went on after we sold the business and I took a break. I had an opportunity to get paid not to work, right? A severance agreement, which I never had before and I knew I would never have again. So I took advantage of that severance agreement and took some time off and got married to my lovely fiance, and now my wife for 22 years or 23 years this summer. Anyway, I went on to do 5 more franchise deals. As a franchisee, as a franchisor, as a developer, multi-unit, multi-brand, and I got into these other different concepts. Most of them were retail and some were service, some were B2B, just a variety of stuff. And as a partner, as an operator in different kind of capacities, the biggest probably high profile one was PostNet. PostNet is a concept out there that does business service centers. Think of like a Kinko's, Meats and Mailboxes, etc. Back in those days. Those were our competitors when I started. And I was a regional developer, had a lot of stores, had some great success, worked really hard. That was a great time in that brand. It was a lot of fun. The founders were still there and I was young and energetic and I had high profile experience through the IFA. At the time, I had grown up going to IFA conferences with my family. And so everybody knew me there as a franchisor, right? I was the son of Joe and Flo Francis. My parents, by the way, are in the IFA Hall of Fame, right? Which is fantastic. So I would come back to IFA now as a franchisee, as a developer with PostNet. And it was like, well, that's interesting. Not a lot of people had done that sort of at that time, right? 20 years ago. Anyway, I had a great run with PostNet, spent about 10 years with that brand and did, everything I could do. It was a lot of fun, had some good success, worked really hard with great people. And again, it was a good culture, good business, just a good outcome, really. Everybody involved had a lot of fun with it. So, and then the other deals I did, I was in and out of it in kind of different capacities and different levels, but sold that last business. My last operating business was 2011. So 10 years ago, or I guess 11 years ago. And if you don't count COVID, right? So I've been kind of a free agent, what I called my nickname at that time was a reluctant consultant to the franchise industry, because I liked doing the work, but I didn't really advertise or promote myself at all. It was mostly word of mouth. And so I was serving on boards. That seemed to be a good place for me to serve on a board of directors or a board of advisors. And I had experience running a group called Inner Circle, which was a peer group for business owners. Think of it like a Vistage or a Tab or Renaissance. There are these roundtable. They're all over the place. And they've been around for a long time. And so I was a member of this group, Inner Circle. It was called The Inner Circle back in the 80s and the 90s. So I'd been a member for 25 years. And we actually franchised that concept and built it out and sold a bunch of stores and then wound up, or a bunch of units. They weren't stores, they were facilitators. And we wound up selling that concept in 2009, just before the recession, which was fantastic timing. We didn't really know it was the recession, but it turned out to be a pretty good time. Anyway, fast forward to COVID. So much happened in COVID. Everybody was online all the time. And I was doing my part to not only work with my clients who were dealing with the realities of everything being shut down and the struggles and frustration that COVID created for the whole world. Once things settled down, I realized, well, my speaking work, I'd been doing some speaking. I have an agent, she's great. And she's like, well, everything's canceled. All these events are done. And my boards and board meetings, all of that was kind of put on hold. Everything's like, wow, we got to wait and see. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And so I started doing a lot more just virtual networking using LinkedIn and learning some things online and just trying to find another way to do what I love to do. And I found a group that was organizing these groups, these peer groups for franchisors. So the new thing I'm involved with is called Zor Forum. And it was organized by a guy named Dave Pasgan, who had a good success with a brand called 101 Mobility, which was a franchisor that was pretty successful. They helped keep people in their homes, like aging in place with ramps and handicapped modifications to homes and things of that nature. And Dave, I think, did a great job with that brand and sold it, private equity, and stayed on and grew the value and had a great outcome. And along the way, while he was building that brand, he created this peer group or this mastermind group with other franchisors, that guys you would know, the guys that started other brands like Tutor Doctors and College Hunks, right, and Speed Pro, some of these other brands that were in various stages of growth at the time. Anyway, these CEOs got together. They would see each other at conferences, and so they sort of organized. Loosely organized or informally organized themselves as a group. So they would share ideas, and then they took some structure. I think some of the guys were in EO and YPO and some of these other, big, well-structured, well-respected groups. And so they started this informally. And then again, fast forward to COVID. After Dave sold his business, he said to the other guys in this group, like, look, I want to organize these groups. I think there's real value there. To organize these groups for other franchisors who want to learn and share from each other. And so he connected with Stan Friedman, who's in Atlanta, another great, well-known expert and professional in franchising, and another guy, Graham Chapman, who's younger, I guess, than us or than me. Graham's a marketing guy out of, I think, North Carolina, very interesting, energetic, smart, very capable, professional, right? Seems just committed to doing the right thing, right? So these guys, these three organized together, and I tried to get involved and figure out where I could add value. And it turned out the best role for me was to become their first franchisee. So technically I'm a franchisee again. I mean, actually I'm a franchisee again. I have an agreement, I have a process, and we're organizing these groups. So the Zor Forum, I launched last fall in October. So October, November, and then I had some personal issues. My mother passed away last December in 2001. So of course I stopped, everything kind of took a break. And then we picked it up now in January 22, just a few months ago, with a few members, and then adding a few members, a few visitors, and trying to get the word out, trying to just slowly, carefully put these together. So today I have two groups, and I believe I have 9 members. I think I just got one this week, actually. So what we normally do is have someone visit the group, like a free trial, right? And you come visit the group. We meet for 3 hours once a month. It's all online. But it's organized and it's moderated. So I'm the facilitator moderator, and I'm trying to help make sure that we get through each of the members. And then between meetings, we use a tool, we have a process to really prepare for the meeting, which allows the members to bring issues that really matter to them. So at the Zor Forum, we go to a deeper level of real problem solving. Right. I mean, we start with kind of the easy, what I would say, best practices and networking, who do you use for this, or who do you use for that, or how do you solve these kind of, relatively simple problems. We do that quickly. But where the real value comes, because we go for 3 hours and it's an exclusively private, confidential environment, right? And it's facilitated. So we go into these issues and we really peel back the onion and get in to solve the problems for these members, the things that really make a difference, real valuable change. And a lot of it is also giving advice to these folks so they avoid the mistakes that they probably don't know about or couldn't predict. Because the franchising model and the franchising journey, or the path of success in franchising, while it's different for everybody, there are so many similarities and so many things that apply from one brand to another, even if they're in completely different business models. The franchising components really are easily transferable in a lot of cases, and that experience is easy to share. The franchise community has this collaborative energy. We're always looking to share, and people are always surprised at how willing people are to share. And to me, it's like, that's always been that way. You know, I don't understand how that's different. I guess because I've only really been in this industry at this level for so long. So I'm used to it that way. So in that sense, this role for me is perfect, right? This is exactly what I love to do, what I've been doing already in a previous life, in a previous business, but really naturally as I go around and do my thing with the clients I have as on boards, board of advisors, board of directors, some coaching, some speaking, some consulting, you know, that's the kind of work I've been doing for 10 years. So the Zor Forum really gives me a chance to work with more clients, more franchisor individuals, professionals, and the brands behind them in an affordable way that I can't afford to work with them one-on-one, but as a group, we can afford to work together. And not only do they get access to me and what I can share, but they get access to each other. I mean, the other members, sometimes there's fantastic experiences and ideas and sharing that happens. It has nothing to do with me. It's the other people in the meeting at the same time. So we're really having a blast with the Zor Forum groups. I'm enjoying it. I think my members are enjoying it. I've had great feedback, and we're still learning how to do this better and more consistently. And I'm being very careful about members who join and which groups they're in. Obviously, we want to avoid competitive conflicts, but there's certain chemistry and certain issues sometimes that are more relevant to some brands and not the others. So that's kind of where I'm at. Zorforum.com, ZORFORUM.com. Excuse me. And we're not hard to find. I think they're on all the social medias. And my nickname, Johnny Franchise, that's my website. You can learn more about me, probably more than you ever wanted to, by going there. And, you know, I get around to the franchise events, industry shows, the IFA, some of the other conferences from time to time. And just really like to be a resource to people. You know, I say that I don't want to buy your company. I don't want to sell your company. I don't want to work there. You know, I really don't want to be committed in that sense. I like to help other people do what they're doing. I want to be the advisor. I want to be valuable, but not busy. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, right? Because it's easy to be busy, but I like to be valuable for the people I can. Where I can help, I will, and where I can't, I'll get out of the way and probably give you 5 ideas or 5 people to talk to that might be a better fit for what your needs are. So that's a lot, I think, but that's my story. That's kind of who I am, where I came from, what I've done, what I'm doing now, and really what I think I can continue to do is serve clients through these groups. I can have multiple groups. I'll probably have more than 2. I mean, I think there's certain limit, you know, you don't want to get too big because you don't have time to go into these issues. So I'll probably have a few more groups over the next few years. And I think I could do this hopefully for a long, long time and really have an impact on helping the brands that I can, and then the people that they can then help along the way, right? I think this has an exponential impact potential, which is really powerful. So I'm excited about it and having a fun time doing it. And we're glad to be a resource. You know, like I said, I'm easy to find. I'm happy to talk and share ideas. And if it's a fit, we'll try it. And if it's not, we'll move on.
Yeah, John, thank you so much. And a question I had for the members of Zor Forum, certainly the majority of the clients we work with tend to be brand new franchisors, you know, emerging brand. They have either maybe 0 franchises sold, they're just launching, on up to maybe 20 or 30 franchises in their network. So we talk a little bit about the typical kind of franchisor that's a part of Zor Forum right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the earliest members were already clients of mine, people I'm already working with, already familiar with their brand, saying, you know, I think this group format might be helpful because of the other members. You're getting an added perspective expansion, really. So some of the other members are mature brands, actually, that have, you know, 150, 200, 300 units. They've been around for a while, and they have issues and challenges, and sometimes obviously they're different than a startup or a very early stage. Some of the early brands we have are small. They have maybe 10 units, but they've got a whole bunch in the pipeline, right? Sold but not open, and they're growing very rapidly. Some of the other members are, I'm thinking of a guy who has a business that he has experience. He's got 15 or 20 existing units, but he's now going to start franchising the business in different parts of the country, which is really cool. He's got a great base to start from, which is, I guess, better than most, right? Others we've got that are, I'm thinking of some of the other brand new members just got their FDDs, right? They're just launching, they're underway, and they're trying to, get a 1 or 2 or 3. And it's like, wow, that early phase is so critical. And so we coach them on how to do that and why it's important to do these things a certain way, or dealing with whatever they're dealing with. Because while they're all similar, they're all very different. Different industries, different category, different people, different resources, different markets, all kinds of differences. So the group really allows those differences to come out as a positive, because we can share, but we can adapt what we learn to fit where it fits, and where it doesn't fit, that's okay too. I say you take what works and leave the rest. And because it's such a private, confidential environment, when we ask some really tough questions, and it's okay to, we ask for sort of permission to offend, right? It's okay to be a little uncomfortable in the group, because we're there to really help each other. So you might get asked a tough question that you're like, whoa, but that's where you're growing, right? That's where you're seeing things differently. And it's not meant to hurt anybody or frustrate anyone. It's meant to challenge and help you grow and see something that you might have missed. So a lot of I would say out of the 8 or 9 that I have now, probably half of them are underway, sort of probably 30 or more units open. So not exactly emerging. I think emerging brand is like the first 30. Like, if you make it to 30, you're probably going to make it to 50. If you make it to 50 and you don't blow it, right, you'll get to 100. That seems to be kind of the most difficult period, is after you get the initial group up and running, and then to try to get to the 100 is like Death Valley, and so we talk about that and why and how that happens and how to avoid it, and the different approaches that might work for people to really build for the long haul, and then all the other things that come with it. You can imagine that I've got clients that are thinking about exiting their brand, or they're talking to private equity. It's like, really, okay, let's have that conversation about what, why, and how that might work or not work, and questions to ask to make you think about it, and ways to handle those conversations, whatever they might be. So it's just a dynamic, because there's so many things happening in these brands. It's really exciting to be able to see and help and have some influence on helping these folks get where they're trying to go.
Great. Well, that's excellent. And John, while we have you here, I'd love to open it up. We've got several folks on the line here. So do we have questions for Johnny while he's still on the line, about Zor Forum, about his background, about getting involved? I'll go ahead and just either type it into the chat box, or raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, or and we can go ahead and unmute you there. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. I sometimes when I get to speak to a brand, and I've got a program and my material, and I go through my presentation, and then the Q&A, I'm like, we've got some time for questions. Can't believe no one has a question, right? And I like the Q&A is usually the most interesting part of the presentation. Yeah. So
yeah,
happy to take some questions if we've got any.
Well, John, one thing I'd like to just at least make sure, I know you mentioned this briefly, but just what's the best way for someone to contact you if they're interested in just talking or learning more about what you're doing, maybe joining a group, or maybe checking one out if you've got kind of a try it before you fully commit all the way. Definitely. Where they could maybe see one in action for an hour or so. Yeah. Talk through that.
Yeah, well, the easiest way to find me is my website is johnnyfranchise.com. And I'm on all the, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, sort of, Twitter, I know what it is, but So we use some of the socials, and I'm not hard to find and reach. I'm pretty responsive when people message or email or whatever. And yeah, I'm happy to talk to people, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, depending on how crazy the schedule is. And what I can do is learn more about you and your brand and your situation and kind of where you are and who you are and what you're dealing with. And then I can help you decide if it's really going to be a fit, if it's going to be worthwhile taking a look at it. And if not, I can probably point you in the right direction for whatever else you might need or wherever you are in the process. And then if it is something you want to try, we decide it's a good fit, then I'll say join one of these groups, depending on various factors. And we'll let you try the whole meeting. It's 3 hours for free. You have to agree to the confidentiality and sign NDA kind of stuff, but then we'll let you try it. And then we'll talk after the trial, after the meeting. And then we decide if it's really a fit, if you're really going to commit to it, because it's more than just money. It's time, it's attention, it's consistent engagement with the group is really what's expected. It's a very affordable thing. The fee today is $500 a month. And there's no initial fee and there's no like year commitment or anything. It's kind of like a subscription. So I think that's very affordable for most folks. And I think you really do get tremendous value out of it. And certainly if you engage, it's like anything, the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. I mean, that's just like most things in life. But that's kind of how we start with the Zora Forum. And then, other things that I do for franchisors and franchisees, other services, other approaches, other things I can offer. I mentioned speaking. I've got some courses, and the board work is really kind of fun. I like to help set those up, and I like to help kind of revitalize those. Some projects like advisory councils or peer groups for franchisees, other kind of needs and what I call nuts and bolts, put it together kind of thing. I do some of that work, and then but I've got other folks like you and other professionals out there who can do a lot of the same things if it's a better fit for whatever reason. I avoid conflict of interest. Some of the boards I serve on, are board of directors where it's a fiduciary responsibility. So I'm not going to work with a competitor because that would be a potential for a conflict of interest. I don't need that headache, and neither do you. So sometimes I need to refer people off to another resource because of those potential conflicts. But I've got a great network in franchising. Like I said, I've been around it my whole life. I grew up going to IFA conferences back when they used to be like going to a small wedding. There's about 500 people and you knew half of them. That's what it was. And I've served the IFA board of directors twice. I have 6 boards I'm on today, and then I have a handful of coaching clients, and then these 2 groups. So I do some occasional speaking to franchisors usually at their conference for their brand, which is really fun. I really enjoy that, and like I say, I think I found my niche. I'm just going to do my best and stay with it.
Great. Well, Johnny, thank you as always. Phenomenal presentation. Thank you for sharing and being a resource available. And I just think it's a great thing for franchising. I think that this mastermind with the Zora Forum is something that I think has been in need for probably decades. And I'm really glad that you're helping build and create this community to help emerging and growing franchisors just continue to improve and learn and share to make franchising as a whole better. So thank you for that. And I encourage anyone that's listened in or is listening to this to reach out to John at johnnyfranchise.com to learn about how he might be able to support you.
That's right. Well, thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity to share and to collaborate with you and share what I have with your audience. And I really do appreciate the time. It's great. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll be back here next week. Thank you. Have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.